Hello everybody and welcome to the second episode of me, To Be Astronomer, hello, reacting to how the moon debunks heliocentrism. Apparently! I didn't know. Last time we covered the first three embarrassments, heliocentric debunks, and now we will be going on to the fourth one.
Number 3. I want to give special attention to heliocentric debunk number 4.
Okay, special attention sounds like this is some kind of important point then, I guess.
Because it is the most easily verifiable debunk of heliocentrism in my opinion.
Okay.
Let's focus on the fact that the only time a lunar or solar eclipse could ever take place in heliocentrism is at the March equinox and the September equinox.
That's not true. The equinox has nothing to do with the moon cycle at all. There are some years where they align, but that's pure coincidence. They have nothing to do with each other at all.
Do you see that?
I would also like to draw special attention, as he says, to the fact that this graphic in principle is correct, albeit a bit misleading. No, not necessarily misleading, a bit superficial, and that he, like Awake Souls, had to write down March, June, September, and December. Do you know why it's not here in any of the other depictions? Because the times that this actually occurs, like that the moon is in this position, changes throughout the year. I have explained that at the end of my past video in the editing. That this moon orbit actually changes because the moon's period is roughly 28 days, and but that's not how long a month is. So just from that, the discrepancies arise. There's a whole Wikipedia article. It's called an eclipse season. I even have it open, where you can read up all about it, and then you can see that they shift around, right. So you have January, February. Then you have January, February again the next year. Then you have December, January. So we've already moved a bit. December, December, November, December, November, November, October, October, and so on and so forth. And eventually they'll align with September and March, which just happens to be the equinoxes. But that has nothing to do with the moon's position. The equinox is just the Earth and how it lays kind of relative to the sun. It just says that the day and the night are the same length, right? This has nothing to do with the moon whatsoever. The moon does its own kind of thing, and occasionally they just align because there are two cycles that just can overlap.
Do you remember why we were looking at this graphic?
Because you wrote down here September equinox and March equinox, with that only being correct like every, I don't know, 10 years or something.
It is because this graphic is the explanation of why we do not have lunar eclipses every full moon. Scientists have put the moon at a 5.1 degree tilt to the ecliptic plane in the reciprocal direction of Earth's tilt.
That is correct.
To get it out of the way.
It's not there to get it out of the way, it's there because it is. It's just a description. I know that Awake Souls probably thinks that this is some kind of super strange conspiracy and everything, but that's not just not what's going on, dude. I'm sorry.
That is because without this motion, the moon would be eclipsed every full moon.
If the moon's axis, the rotational axis around Earth, the orbit, was aligned with the ecliptic, then yes, we would have, if it was perfect, then we would have an eclipse every day, essentially. Maybe not every day, but depending on how the moon stands relative to the sun, at least every month, but probably like if we count lunar eclipses as well, we would have one every 2 weeks, essentially. I said every day earlier, I meant every month, I'm sorry.
So look at what happens as a result of this. Lunar or solar eclipses cannot take place anywhere near the December solstice or near the June solstice.
In one particular year, the one where this happens to line up in March and September, that is correct, but only in that particular year. 2006 and 2007, for example, or 2006 as a whole. Or the next time your statement was correct in 2015-ish. It had an April in it, but that's still fine. And it won't be correct for another, couple of years again. So when did you release this video? 1 year ago! So you released this video in 2022, and you couldn't be bothered to look up how the moon's orbit was in 2022. Appalling. Truly appalling.
The model literally makes it impossible for either a lunar or solar eclipse anywhere near these dates. So what?
In one single year, that is correct. Over the span of 10 years, that's just not true. Not even 10 years. You can only have, like, this already works with like 2 years or something.
Happens if we look up the dates of projected lunar and solar eclipses? Will we get any outside the narrow window?
By the way, it's not like this is news to us, right? This has been modeled like decades ago, if not centuries ago, probably centuries, very likely centuries. So I don't really like. You could have just looked it up. You could have just put 3 minutes of effort in it to have a look and to not see and to see that the depiction time and date on which you have just added the dates that are not correct aren't the truth. I'm not sure if you're really that careless in your informational research, which would probably explain why you're a flat earther, or if you're doing this on purpose and lying.
Of the equinoxes, which are the only times that are possible with the heliocentric model? Of course. Let's look through these lists. So that is heliocentric debunk number 4.
This is absolutely a total embarrassment for you, number 4, I'd say.
Lunar or solar eclipses could only happen within an extremely narrow window of the equinoxes.
No, that's just a lie, as I've explained earlier. It's also not like we can't explain this. There are software pieces like, I don't know, Stellaris, for example. Stellarium, I'm sorry. and you can even do this, I believe, with Universe Sandbox. They have an Earth, Moon, Sun system that is about accurate, if I recall. So it's not like we haven't got this model. It's not like that's an open question. maybe put 5 minutes of effort in it to actually understand the model that you're trying to debunk.
Now that we have broached the topic of why heliocentrists use this graphic as to why we do not have eclipses of the moon every full moon, let's take a look at another way we can debunk heliocentrism. As you can see here,
please do go on. I'm excited to hear something that makes me laugh.
The reason we are to not expect an eclipse every full moon is that from the March equinox to the September equinox, and from the September equinox to the March equinox, the moon is either too high or too low.
If we apply this specific example when the moon's orbit is like that in June and like that in September, then yes, the moon is either too high or too low. That is correct.
Now everyone knows that Earth has 2 polar rotations, except for the fake flat Earth shills that promote the Freemason New World Order AE mappa model, which has only 1.
I love the flat Earth infighting. Also, I would be extremely curious to know how he thinks you can have 2 rotational poles. Well, it's just 1 rotational pole being seen from the 2 kind of sides. So I'm very interested in seeing how you could have 2 rotations on a flat Earth. I'd love for him to explain that.
And they have to deny the existence of a south polar rotation. But if you do understand that Earth has 2 polar rotations and that the stars rotate counterclockwise north of the equator around Polaris, and they rotate clockwise south of the equator around a starless spot called Sigma Octans, then you will know that each one of these diagrams have their north pole pointed towards Polaris, which is only visible north of the equator. And
that is correct. Polaris is only visible north of the equator. A clear indication, by the way, that Earth cannot be anything much else than a globe. If you travel down 1 degree on the Earth, like I am at roughly 45, right? 45 degrees north. And if I travel down to 44, the angle to Polaris will have changed by 1 degree. And this is only possible on a globe. I travel down 1 degree, and Polaris goes up and down depending on where I move by 1 degree. Not possible on flat Earth, by the way.
Their south pole pointed towards Sigma Octans, which is only visible south of the equator.
That is correct.
That means that during the December solstice, only north of the equator could see the moon going into or out of full moon.
once again.
Towards sigma octans, which is only visible south of the equator. That means that during the December solstice, only north of the equator could see the moon going into or out of full moon, and that only...
No, that is not true. First of all, we have already discussed how this orbit changes. So, not every year, most years actually not, the moon will have a different orbit, right? Not the one that is depicted here. You have written December here, which is not in the original graphic, because it's just wrong on most years. So, first of all, that's a lie. Secondly, you are confused with three-dimensional thinking here, I believe. If the moon was, let's say, here, so you would see it, and you would be standing here. You could still you'd still be able to see it from South America, which this is. So that's just wrong.
South of the equator could see the moon coming into or out of new moon.
No, you can't. If you'd be standing in India, for example, and the moon was being here-ish, you'd still be seeing it being pretty small, like being close to being a new moon, for example.
Let's look at the reciprocal of that at the June solstice. During the June solstice, only north of the equator could see the moon coming into or going out of new moon, and only south of the equator could the moon be seen going into or out of full moon.
Again, same thing applies here. If we're here at the Horn of Africa, I believe. Yes. If we're here at the Horn of Africa, I could have absolutely no worries whatsoever looking at the moon. Why do you think I can't? Classical case of a flat earther not being able to think in more than 2 dimensions. Not even 2 in most cases.
There is no place on Earth that has ever recorded not being able to see the moon for more than 2 days, and it has never been based on latitude.
I don't know. This claim could be correct. I don't know, but seems fine. And it's never based on latitude. Let me have a think about it really briefly. Well, it is a bit, I guess. Not majorly so, but it can be a bit. Of course, if the moon's only very, very briefly over the horizon, you can't see it if you're too far down, obviously.
That is the 5th heliocentric debunk that we've been...
It's the 5th embarrassment for you, because you've, again, not put in the 5 minutes of research necessary to figure out where you're wrong.
Able to get out of this one graphic. Each one of the debunks have facts that are verifiable, testable, and repeatable. True science. So at this
True science! God, I love it when flat earthers say that.
point, the person with common sense has to admit that heliocentrism has been thoroughly debunked. But I'm not done yet. While I have this graphic up here, I want to show you one more thing. You see this globe tilted 23.5 degrees to the ecliptic plane at the equinoxes? Let's zoom in on our March equinox node. Can you see that at the equinoxes that an Earth tilt of 23.5 degrees would make it impossible for the sun to rise 90 degrees east and set 270 degrees west everywhere on Earth on the same day? Let me straighten this out so that you can see how Earth would have to be positioned for that to work. Now you can see heliocentric debunk number 6, all from this one simple graphic of
the sun rises not perfectly 19 degrees east every day, at least not. I believe it only does on the equator, although that is a statement that I would have to check up immediately. I'm not entirely sure now. Do you really think that if this was a big problem that we wouldn't have discovered that within the last 300 years? Completely beyond me. I'm extremely confident that this can be explained thoroughly on a globe by just looking up the basic orbital mechanics. Except, in fact, now that I think about it, I don't see what your issue is with the globe here. The sun rises due to the landmass rotating into the allied section of the globe. Why should it be a problem? Makes no sense immediately.
the heliocentric model. Let's move on though. We could beat up on heliocentrism all day, every day for the next millennia. So if heliocentrism...
Please do, I want to have more videos to talk about flat earthers not understanding stuff.
...is absolutely impossible, how do the fake flat earth shills model this, you may be asking?
And I believe now it's just talking about fake flat earthers, which would be really interesting to have a look at, but definitely beyond the scope of this video. This video is 52 minutes long, and I absolutely do not have the time or the nerves, as a matter of fact, to have a look at all of that. So with that, I thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, maybe consider leaving a like. If you enjoyed a lot, I might get you to consider subscribing. Either how, I will see you in the next video, and I wish you a nice day. Goodbye!